Hi, so my name's Nickki Johns and I work for Principality Building Society, and today we wanted to share the story we went through when we developed mortgage payment holidays through the COVID crisis. So through this session, I wanted to talk through a number of things: how we rode that initial storm those first few weeks, what drove the change in our process and how we dealt with that, the partnership we created with FinTech, how we designed that solution and created some communications, and more importantly, what did we learn? So what are those big learnings that we are taking forward and integrating into our digital transformation? Before I start, just a brief look at who Principality are. We're Wales's largest building society with over 560,000 customers. That mortgage book is right across the UK. And as I said, the 6th largest building society. And the project team who looked at this has circa 10 members. They're a multifunction team and they were led by Change in Digital. So it's the very end of March. Mortgage payment holidays have gone into a new status. We need to support potentially hundreds, thousands of vulnerable customers. And we've got days to come up with a solution to cope with this. What can you do? So as I said, we've got no idea on the volume of members who take advantage of the new mortgage payment holiday. And we're in an environment where a displaced team are working remotely for the first time. And our immediate reaction was to turn to our content management system. But the reality of the situation was that it was inadequate in its current state to do much more than create very basic forms and do some validation. So we use Sitecore, and in those first few weeks, we had no option other than to put some forms up, and they were then manually processed via email and Excel into a fairly manual internal processing system. And then the next question was, well, are we doing enough for people to understand the impact of a mortgage payment holiday? So we're really concerned at this point about the longer term effects on our members. They've often just taken a mortgage payment holiday based on a friend's advice or an article they might have seen online. But what do they really understand what it is that the impact looks like in terms of their longer term lending? Many of them had applied with little comprehension of the cost impact later on. By now, our contact centre particularly, are under an immense amount of pressure with call volumes at the very max of what they could deal with. So we started to have conversations with a couple of suppliers, and we had a few people to deal with, approach us to look at options that they had built out. And a pre-packaged solution from Podium seemed to be the smartest and quickest answer. And I'll talk a little more later on about what Podium do and how that relationship has created. So by this time, we now have Sitecore forms still being manually processed, still hundreds, thousands of emails per day, and they're going through spreadsheets, through emails into spreadsheets, and then they're manually processed. Plus, we've got an online calculator. But more importantly, at this point, customers are unsure whether we've received their form. They're not sure when the mortgage payment holiday is being processed. And this is causing yet more calls in. And what we want to do at this point is really focus on those customers who have no option but to speak to us, those who either can't get online or have had problems. And we want to make sure that that those customers who are filling in the online form feel really, really confident. So we then started to ask if Podium could do even more for us. We've got a calculator in place that was originally designed for Money Supermarket, and we know that customers can go through a process that they put their details in. They can get an exact quote an approximate quote in terms of what their payment will be, and we know that it's actually reducing some of that failure demand. And we've got a really great, honest and curious relationship with Podium. They're mortgage centric, so they are a joint venture with Money Supermarket, but the Podium technical team all come from a mortgage lending background. And that there are a few elements about them that made them a really great partner for us. So security of data was paramount to what they do. They really understand the mortgage market. They understand the importance of protecting the data. And they gave us the reassurance that if we put a solution into their hands, they would help us through. They've also got a development pipeline that allows them to get solutions into market at real pace. And it's a problem that we all face where our development sometimes just does not match the needs of the market. But Podium had something that they could provide us, a solution that would get us something into market really quickly, because we don't know how long it's going to take until we get a resolution on this mortgage payment holiday. So there is a long and complicated conversation where we say anything we buy off the shelf isn't going to help us significantly. So what if we built an end-to-end solution? And no, we're not crazy, or not that crazy. So payment holiday extensions by now are coming into view. And anything, as I said, anything that we'd looked at historically, and there were a few sort of off-the-shelf solutions at that point, just didn't fit our process. So we started to have really fluid conversations with Podium, and they took place over Teams and WebEx. We use a tool called Mockups, and Mockups is a really simple wireframing tool, but we started together on calls, build out a solution that explained, that took us through the customer journey, and we explored the customer journey together. And we did this in a matter of hours, rather than days and weeks that a usual customer journey would take. And we started to pull something together. And although it wasn't perfect, and it's really important to know, we never delivered perfect. We know we didn't. But we were starting to pull together a set of screens and some verification that allowed us to say we could deliver a better solution to our customers, one that was much more improved and much more streamlined for both our colleagues and our members than the really manual forms we had in place. And so therefore we agreed that a 3-week delivery period wasn't totally within the bounds of possibility, and we took advantage of Podium's really agile approach. Again, it was very much a design and refine as we went. It's far from ideal, and I wouldn't suggest that everybody delivers agile projects in such a way, but it got the job done really quickly. The other important thing was that we used our MuleSoft API layer to connect Podium to Dotmailer, which is our customer communications tool. And that also allowed us to get the email and SMS out to customers and provide that customer reassurance at really critical time. Again, by using email and SMS and those automations, we were removing reliance on teams who were already under an immense amount of pressure. So at this point, we're now releasing version 3. And after just 3 weeks from the very beginning of the conversation, our Podium solution replaced our web content management forms. And suddenly customers could work out the impact of their mortgage payment holiday, they could apply, and immediately they'd receive confirmation that we'd received a request. And then we connected again through our API layer to confirm when the mortgage payment holiday had been processed. So after 3 weeks, we hadn't had enough, and we wanted to go further. So we needed to smooth the journey for those who needed that incremental support. And those customers who are in real financial difficulties and where a mortgage payment holiday wasn't going to be sufficient, and in advance of the fact that we knew that at some point mortgage payment holidays would end, we started to look at our budget planners. Our arrears process is still quite manual at this point, and customers were filling in an Excel spreadsheet, and then all of that data was being rekeyed. So we again took to Mockups, and through a 3-week process, we redesigned the whole process so that customers could enter their details, they could receive a communication, and all of that data will be processed at our end. And then finally, we added a term extension calculator, again, to help those customers who wanted to understand what the impact of a term extension looked like. Now, with this process, we knew that we were never going to be able to provide the regulated advice that process would require. So we were clear about what we could do and what we couldn't do. So a calculator was felt like the best option to provide that information and allow customers to make a choice and then be handed over to a contact centre representative for advice. And at this point, just 6 weeks after we started our conversation with Podium, we had a full end-to-end process for mortgage customers affected by the pandemic. So here we just a quick diagram to show you what we actually built in the end. The customers came into the online journey and we had some verification questions to confirm that they qualified for a mortgage payment holiday. For those who had come to the end of their holiday, we had the option to restart payments and we had information on the next steps. For our term extension, again, we created a calculator and information on the next steps. And reduced monthly payments and mortgage payment holiday went through a very similar process with a calculator, an application form, and then as the application was processed, an automated email or SMS. And none of this is hugely advanced, but it was a massive step change for the society. We'd never connected our APIs to communications platforms, and we certainly hadn't done it at the pace we did in this situation. So what did we learn? Well, necessity really is the mother of invention. And it kept us incredibly real. It kept us really focused on what we could do in the period we wanted to. And I think if we look at how we approach projects in the future, some level of time boxing can really focus the mind. It certainly helped us decide what we could and couldn't do quickly. And it kept us very, very real on focusing on our customer. The second thing is that partnerships for building societies are like gold, and we should use them really, really wisely. We're incredibly grateful for the relationship we created with Podium, and they often helped us outside of the scope of what they were doing. So whilst they were our design partners and they were predominantly responsible for the building of the solution, they'd often question us and help us work out things or say, well, you've asked for this, but have you thought about doing it this way? And that collaborative two-way working is incredibly important. The third thing, what you think will be a customer problem often isn't. And we were dealing with a group of customers who were under an immense amount of stress. They were vulnerable, they didn't know what was happening, and they were often doing a process for obvious reasons that many of them had never done for the first time. The reality was whilst we started to panic about, were we doing the right thing and would customers understand, as long as we kept their needs at the heart of what we did, the delivery actually was nowhere near as MVP as we thought. And actually, we've only done some small iteration changes based on some feedback. We've had lots of really positive feedback and very little negative. And I think it's testament to that time boxing and the focus that we've created. Fourth, our API layer was invaluable. It was an investment that we made into technology for another reason, but actually this particular situation meant that we were able to deploy a solution that connected our backend systems and the Podium solution to our .mailer communications platform incredibly quickly. We were able to surface data, and most importantly, we were able to allow our marketing team to slightly change and iterate those communications on the fly. So once our developers had left the project, we were still making small tweaks and A/B testing. And then finally, Agile was absolutely paramount to our project. When you really press on the Agile model at any time, there's no time that's even greater than when you've got something quite as time boxed as this. Stand-ups were really, really critical, as were the support of our Scrum Master in clearing problems. So if you have any questions, love to see them in the online chat, and we hope you have a really, really great day. Many thanks.